What's up, everyone? How's it going? Welcome to today's trade recap and market analysis segment and episode. Today is Tuesday, January the 13th, and today we took one trade and it happened to work out pretty nicely for us here. After we took this trade, we didn't focus on the charts as much as we did prior to this, so we are going to see if there's any possibilities after the trade that we have taken and go over the trade that we have taken. So without too much yap, let's get straight into this, right? So coming into the market here, oh, coming into the market here, we marked all our volume profiles out. What we found is that it's kind of hard to figure out where we're gonna head simply because we are near these all-time high regions. CPI pushed upwards and took out these highs, and after CPI we started going downwards again. If you take a look at NQ, as you can see here, what we see here is that we create these highs with NQ, and then right after market open we revisit those highs, and after revisitation of those highs, that's when we start to see that insane negative downwards pressure that we have for the day. So that was our main bias. We really wanted to see what would happen off of a reaction towards either upper CPI liquidity or lower CPI liquidity. And what we saw was that there was a reaction to both of them, but the main reaction that drove price movement today seems to be this upper one. And because of that, we started to have a selling bias. But because we're so close to these we've taken all-time highs in ES, but because of that, it's more so a game of analyzing the trend intraday and simply following that same trend as much as possible while being careful not to catch those tops or lows that cause the reversals. So in other words, we want to catch the retracement rather than the reversal. So with that being said, let's go straight from market open, see if there's anything, and walk you through my process for the day. So right here at market open, we see that price heads down. We have this liquidity here. Let's see what happens after. We move up and we are testing this liquidity, which 7025, which does happen to look like the place that we've topped for the day. So let's keep going. We see this lower liquidity, right? And let me see, 7025. 7025. This was at 825. This is at 830. We see this buying action, and then this is where we struggle to revisit it. Aha. So let's see what happened pre-market. Pre-market seems to be that action that's occurring right there. Okay, makes sense to an extent, but essentially what I'm seeing is that price literally struggled to break through this upper liquidity, right? We're hovering around this upper liquidity. We're seeing these buyers come in. We're seeing positive icebergs, and we're seeing aggressive buyers here on the bookmap. The footprint chart. You can see this through the delta as well here at the top. But despite that, the liquidity seems to hold, and we see a strong flush of sellers that happen to break through this even bigger barrier towards the downside. So what that indicated to me is that these buyers are not strong enough to push price higher than 7025, and as a result we've headed lower. Now potentially we can head lower down to the 7005 region. And what you happen to see is that we do that, but I mean, within all of this, there's no real entry model that we can utilize to get in. Another good indication of continuation downwards is simply because the point of control has moved down with the price as well. And with this right here, you can see that a lot of buyers got absorbed. We're sitting above that region where those where that big buying delta was placed. 950, 851. So we're right around here at this point. And we enter a trade pretty soon after here because I mean take a look. We're seeing such aggressive selling just come in and come in. On here, we're seeing that we're breaking through our marked out liquidity levels and they're not really playing that big of an impact on price. In fact, at this lower region, which also happened to be the CPI lows on NQ, we saw that we made a retracement here and sellers continued showing interest downwards, providing us the opportunity to enter here. And you'll see that right here. So, you see the 7005 level? I mean, there's not really much targets lower. That being said, we do break through it. Do we break through it? Hold on. Yeah, there we go. We do happen to break through it. And now we continue heading towards the downside. And you can see that slight wick because from the 7005 level, we actually move upwards and we do kind of see a barrier there. And it does happen to align. Hold on. Is our view up not on there? It's not. Hold on. Let me add view up again. Just so you guys can see. Okay, got there. 1 second. We just want the view up here. White, triple thickness. There we go. What we see is that it looks to be view up high volume node region on the footprint. I mean, I keep getting these two mixed up, but the Bookmap live stream, we see that it seems to be a VWAP retracement alongside liquidity preventing us from heading higher. And when this liquidity introduced itself, we saw that continuation of selling, breaking through the 7005 liquidity, allowing us to potentially have room to move down further. And you see this big buying that happened there? This was a signal that caused me to enter in, and I'll explain to you why really soon here. But this is this wick that we're seeing here, this buying movement, right? We saw a lot of aggressive selling, and then now we're seeing buying come in. And I mean, that's fine. For me, it doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't indicate a reversal until we get any sort of signal. Right now, we're still iffy. We don't know if price is going to head towards the upside or towards the downside. What we do know is that we are coming back to this high volume node region, and we have a lot of liquidity preventing us from going towards the upside. That being said, we do have a little bit of liquidity causing us to move upwards as well. But this big buyer that got in here, right here, was the main thing that caused me to enter these shorts because we saw this big participant enter here right around liquidity, and then we saw a big splurge of passive sellers come into the market, further preventing us from heading upwards. Now, when we see something like this, it doesn't mean anything unless we analyze what is happening with price in the moment. And right here, we're just waiting. And what we happen to see is that these sellers start to flush towards the downside aggressively. And you can gauge this aggression with not only the big trades indicator, but through more passive seller urgency as more very big sized passive sellers come in here. And price just continues wanting to move lower and lower. Now, when this was there, the main target that I saw was the 6990 level, which happened to be, if you look at the volume profile, six, it happened to be this level, so it's a lower region of the last day's value area. So if you mark it out, you'll happen to see this right here. It's pretty aligned with my target, right? I mean, we could have targeted a few ticks higher at 995, which is pretty significantly higher, or we could have just been a tad bit below, aligning with that liquidity that's really the lower end of all the selling liquidity that we have. So essentially, we saw retracement towards we saw retracement in a sell trend. We saw trapped buyers occur, and we saw trapped buyers occur. Then we saw big passive selling participants come into the market, and they showed urgency with even more passive selling, and then we saw aggressive selling starting to come in with this big trades indicator, and that really gave us a confirmation from this absorption that allowed us to get that short entry, because we want to see these barriers. That's one confluence, but we want to see absorption at those barriers. Second confluence, and third confluence to tie everything up is this aggressive selling following our original confluences, and that's what occurred, and what that's where we entered. Now, as you see, you can see that we moved our stop break even pretty quickly, and the reason behind that was simply because of the lack of targets that we have. Now, that being said, we saw a really good signal. Just because there aren't the best targets, it doesn't mean we should not enter. So we entered in there and we saw the selling come in pretty quickly. And at 9:10, in the 9:10 candle, which is this candle, that's when we moved our stops break even. Before we had a 1 1/3 risk reward, we quickly got it down to break even with 40 ticks being our target. And we see that as we continue to move, we see that buyers attempt to accumulate here, but then selling comes in. I had to turn off my face cam for a bit simply because we got things going on in the background, but essentially you'll go ahead and see that we see that continuation of selling, and we see this big splurge and drop in selling almost, which yeah, does happen to take our target out. So in 15 minutes got a pretty quick splurge towards the downside, and our take profit is hit. What you do happen to notice is that mid trade, we do see that these liquidity levels that were previously there are now lifted, and we're quite deviated from this region. That being said, we're continuing to see aggressive selling towards the downside, and we do still have the 6990 liquidity. Now, the thing is, if we go below this liquidity, we have chance to go a lot further down, but that's not something I'm willing to risk simply because the liquidity is there. We see that drop and we take profit then and there. And we head down even lower to this 8.5 liquidity. We're down to that region. But if you take a look at the book map there, I mean, seems to be pretty bare, or at least how it's set up. Trying to see that. Okay, hold on. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty uniform. We do have this region at 7,000 approximately. but we still see very aggressive selling coming. Now here's a place where I want to see if there's any more potential trades that we can gauge. I mean, here we're seeing pretty aggressive passive buying come in, and I mean, if you take a look at the buying icebergs, they're very, very, very high. And this seems to be the place where we do happen to reverse. And what we see is that we're moving up buyer urgency, breaking through upper barriers. Now we're showing buyer urgency. Now potentially there's something here. Nope, never mind. The orders got lifted. But we're seeing equality on either side. That's why there's not enough confidence for me to enter. One good thing indicating that the longs might occur is simply that there's a clear target towards the upside now. And we're very deviated from the session point of control, and we seem to be heading back up there. But we come up to that liquidity. We do see some buyer absorption there. And we start dropping back down with aggressive selling. So right now here it's quite iffy, like nothing I would really find a confident entry with. Here we have liquidity. Let's see how price gauges this level. It looks like we've dropped down below it. Yeah, we dropped down below it and then we start pushing up. So nothing really I'm seeing throughout any of this. There's a big splurge in buying. Let's see. Now here we consolidate for a bit around this 7,002 to 7,006 level. I do think we're gonna go ahead and take out this 7,006 level simply because it's so significant and point of control is still above. And yeah, I mean we edged the 7,006 level by one tick, but it looks like it's below it anyways. I mean, no signal within any of this. Liquidity looks pretty uniform, and we want pretty nice spreads for us to take anything. And I mean, at this point, the session is over. So I mean, I don't really see any opportunity afterwards. So I mean, the trade that we took, pretty good. And if you want to see the overall reasoning again, you can see this right here. Identified that the overall trend seems to be bearish, very big and strong passive sellers that continue to defend the upside and view up rejection on the NQ as well. Saw some buyer absorption with those big trades. We have that there. And seller aggression. Target is not easy to gauge, like I've said. Play a high volume node or perhaps these lows. We played the high volume node and we played very careful, moving our stop loss to break even very quickly. And explained that once again. But yeah, that's essentially all I have here for today. Have any questions? Leave a comment down below or join the completely free Discord server, which is linked in the description as well. All the order flow tools that I'm using are also linked down there. Add us, one of our channel partners. Has a lot of free accessibility, so I definitely recommend you guys to check him out. But as always, do your own research, and that's all I have for today, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. I guess I'll see you guys then. Goodbye.